Exposed, this haunted fortress houses sinister secrets, unexplained terrors from hell within. Clara stood in the entryway of her new home, heart racing as she absorbed the details of the foreboding structure around her. The shadows were thick like fog. Each corner felt alive, as if the house itself was breathing. Paint peeled from the walls like dead skin, and cracks veined through every surface like the gnarled veins of a forgotten nightmare. It towered over the other houses, a relic of despair looming just beyond the memories of a once vibrant suburb, now clinging to the remnants of a past life. "Mom, can we go outside?" Evan asked, his small voice breaking the heavy silence. Clara forced a smile, hoping the kids didn't sense her unease. She wanted to believe they could make this work, that a backpack for each of them and a few boxes of food could offset the eerie feeling crawling up her spine. But the house whispered secrets, growing louder in the darkest hours. At night, the creaks were almost alive, restless spirits unfurling from the walls and coiling around her heart. Clara tried to shake it off. She was just tired, stressed about money, after losing her job. Yet, when the lights flickered like the breath of something wicked hiding in the shadows, she felt the chill of dread as it settled in deep. One night, tucking Mia and Evan into bed, an unnatural silence enveloped the room, wrapping them in an oppressive weight. The shadows stretched longer, twisting around the edges of their little sanctuary. Out in the distance, she could hear faint whispers shuffling through the cracked windows, carrying the stories of despair reverberating in her bones. She brushed the unease aside, attributing it to the stress she bore. But that evening's quiet pressed against her like the weight of 1,000 fears. "Did you hear that?" Mia whispered, her eyes wide as she clutched her stuffed bear. Clara's heart pounded. The air felt electric, heavy with an unshakable sense of dread. "Just the wind," she replied, though her voice trembled. But it wasn't just the wind, there was something else, manifold and sinister, lurking just outside their door. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days wore on, and Clara's sense of isolation grew sharper. In a desperate attempt for connection, she attended a community meeting. Yet when she voiced her fears, the laughter that filled the room faltered. Eyes dropped, shoulders stiffened. The smiles twisted into something she couldn't decipher. Folks murmured low, exchanging glances, burying a secret too heavy to comprehend. Clara left the meeting, panic rising like bile in her throat. Their fear of her fear was palpable. What was so sinister about this house? That night, alone and trembling, Clara pulled out her laptop. Her fingers danced across the keys, searching for answers. A blog caught her attention, whispering of local folklore and dark tales. It spoke of the fortress, a home once filled with life, now tainted by tragedy and sorrow. The memories of those who walked those halls lingered like ghosts seeking vengeance. An icy chill ran down Clara's spine as she read deeper, the stories weaving into her own. She closed the laptop, heart hammering, eyes darting to the shadows that gathered beyond the door. Just then, a shriek pierced the stillness, echoing through her home, a sound that shattered her ever-fragile peace. Dread pooled in her stomach. Was it her children? Panic clawed at her throat. Without hesitation, she rushed toward the source of fear, knowing the battle for their safety had just begun and it was going to be a fight against an unseen darkness lurking within the walls, watching, waiting, feeding off the hope that still flickered in her heart. Clara burst into the children's room, her heart racing like a wild drum. The sight before her muddled her mind. Mia sat upright in bed, eyes wide, frozen in terror, her stuffed bear clutched tightly against her chest. Evan wasn't in his bed. Panic shot through Clara as she spun around the room, desperately searching for him. There he was, standing by the closet, his small frame silhouetted by the faint light of the moon creeping through the window. "Evan!" she cried, her voice breaking. He didn't respond. Clara's feet moved instinctively, crossing the cold floor as she gently placed a hand on her son's shoulder. "What's wrong, baby?" "Mom, something's in there," Evan whispered, his voice trembling so violently it sent shivers down her spine. He pointed toward the closet, fingers shaking as if trying to hold back an unseen force. Before she could reply, a low growl emanated from within the closet, a sound that made her blood run cold. Clara's heart dropped. She could feel the darkness seeping from the corner, wrapping around her mind in a vice-like grip. "Let us go," she urged, pulling Evan toward her. But he resisted, his tiny feet rooted to the ground as he stared at the door, eyes wide with unadulterated fear. "Mia, stay close," Clara cautioned as dread coiled tightly around her. She kept her eyes on the closet, bracing for whatever lurked behind the faded wood. With a swift motion, she flung the closet door open. Darkness spilled out like a shadowy fog, and the air grew heavier, thicker with dread. Moments passed, feeling like a lifetime. Then, from the abyss of the closet, something stirred. "Mom!" Mia whispered, now gripping the sheets tightly, eyes darting between her mother and brother. Clara took a deep breath, calling upon every ounce of courage she had left. "There's nothing here, just clothes," she said, trying to reassure herself as much as them. Yet the shadows seemed to whisper louder, gnashing at her resolve. Suddenly, a shifting form moved in the corner of her eye, a flicker of darkness darting away from the closet. Clara's breath hitched. She turned just in time to see a shadow slip out and vanish into the wall, disappearing like smoke into the night. "Did you see that?" Evan gasped, his small body trembling against her. "I know. I didn't," Clara lied, forcing her voice to remain steady as fear crawled up her throat. She glanced back at Mia, who had turned pale, staring wide-eyed at the now silent closet. Silence enveloped the room, thick like a heavy blanket. Every instinct screamed for them to flee, to escape this fortress that had drawn them into its sinister grip. But the doorway looked like the mouth of a beast, and with each passing moment, it felt like they were being sucked deeper into its abyss. "Mom, please. Can we sleep with you tonight?" Mia pleaded, her voice quivering. "Yes, yes. Of course," Clara said, moving quickly to gather her children in her arms. As they huddled together on the small bed, she felt the warmth of their bodies against her, but it did little to quell the cold festering inside her. And just then, a harsh, bone-chilling laugh echoed from the hallway, clawing its way through the air. Clara's blood ran cold. The sound reverberated with a familiarity that made her stomach churn deep, mocking, as though it had spilled forth from the very walls of the house. What had she brought her family into? With each rapid heartbeat, the walls seemed to close in, the air thickening around them. Clara pulled her children closer as shadows danced further into the corners of their fragile world. There was no escaping it, whatever haunted this place had awakened, and it wanted something from them. The laughter faded into silence, but a question lingered in the choking air: who or what was lurking just beyond their sanctuary in the night? In the suffocating stillness, Clara felt the walls breathe, and the answer hung bleak on the horizon of her nightmare. But what she didn't know was that the worst was yet to come. Clara's heart thundered against her ribcage, the sound drowning out the echo of the sinister laughter that still clung to the air. She tried to calm her children, but their breaths came in panicked gasps, the desperation palpable as she huddled them closer. Shivers raced down her spine, a visceral reminder of their vulnerability, and her mind sprinted through a maze of thoughts. "What do we do?" Mia whispered, her voice quaking. "Just stay quiet. We'll be okay," Clara said, an edge of uncertainty creeping into her voice. They were silent as the night stretched on, but soon the unfamiliar heaviness seeped through the walls, a sentient weight pressing against them from all sides. She could feel something watching, waiting. The shadows in the room grew, pulsating, almost alive, as if they danced to the rhythm of some dark heartbeat. "Mom, I'm scared," Evan said. His small body trembled in her grasp, and she couldn't tell if he was shaking from fear or if something else lurked beyond their perception. "Me too, baby. But we have to be brave," she whispered, wishing her words held more power. She looked toward the closet, its door still ajar, darkness yawning wide like a cavern leading to nowhere. Suddenly, a soft rustle came from the corner of the room, close enough for Clara to feel the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. She strained to listen, every instinct screaming at her to turn and confront whatever was hiding within the depths. "Evan, Mia, stay put," Clara instructed as she rose from the bed, the creaking floorboards under her feet sounding deafening in the stillness. She inched toward the closet, her resolve unsteady, heart hammering in her chest as she dared to peer inside once more, but nothing stirred. Just clothes, just shadows, just more darkness. She let out a slight breath, a fragile shield against the panic that threatened to drown her. Then, she felt it, a cool breath against her skin, a whisper, almost muted, that sent icy fingers down her spine. She jerked her head, convinced of someone standing close behind her. "Mom?" Mia's voice was laced with fear, silently urging her forward. Clara turned back, forcing a smile she didn't feel to reassure her children. But the air felt thicker now, something unnatural weighing heavily as her eyes roamed across the room. It was like a silent storm brewing, a pressure ready to burst. Let us just sit down," Clara said, pushing through the fear. "Everything is fine. Look, see?" She gestured toward the moonlight that frosted the edges of the window, a glimmer of normalcy in the nightmare. And then she noticed it, a shadow flickering, momentarily illuminated by the moon. It wasn't born from the closet, it drifted from the darkened hallway beyond their sanctuary. Clara's breath hitched as the figure swayed like smoke. It hovered, as if weighing its options, before slowly, deliberately, inching toward them. "Mom?" Mia said again. "What is that?" "I don't know, sweetheart. Just stay close," was all Clara could muster, her heart now racing faster, each beat echoing like drums of war inside her chest. Evan whimpered softly, clinging to his sister. The figure grew clearer in the dim light, not human, not quite solid, but there. Clara felt her pulse quicken, a primal urge to protect rising inside her as the thing drew near, its form shifting and changing with every blink of her tired eyes. "Run!" She suddenly screamed, yanking her children from their beds, their fear mirroring her own, bodies colliding as they stumbled together. They bolted for the door, hearts pounding, but it slammed shut with a violent slam, as if a hand had clasped it from the other side. "Mom!" Mia's voice pierced through the panic. Clara pressed her palm against the door, her fingers trembling. No, let us out." The air thickened again, the shadows closing in around them. Breaths quickened, time stretched as Clara spun to face her children, their wide, terrified eyes searching hers for answers she didn't have. Suddenly, the laughter returned, ringing through the air, mocking her desperation. She felt the walls hold their breath as darkness bore down on them. Something ancient and hungry danced just on the edge of their reality. What did it want? With each second, the terror thickened, and Clara realized she was being taken deeper into a nightmarish game, not of her choosing, and the truth was far more chilling than she could have ever fathomed. Panic surged through Clara's veins as she turned away from the door, the oppressive darkness spilling forth like oil, soaking the room in a malevolent embrace. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. "Mom, what's happening?" Evan's voice trembled, breaking the suffocating silence. "I don't know, baby." Clara clasped her hands around their small shoulders, even as her heart raced perilously close to the brink of despair. "But we need to be brave. We can't let it win." The laughter echoed loudly now, swirling in their ears, tinged with malice and delight, like a cruel puppet master pulling at their strings. She wanted to scream, to shout for help, but the primal fear settled on her lungs, squeezing the sound out of her like air from a balloon. "Mom!" Mia cried, the sharp edge of her voice tearing through Clara's thoughts. "It's coming." Clara's breath quickened as she twisted around, her eyes scanning the room. The figure loomed just beyond the bed, a swirling mass of shadow and flickering light. It seemed to breathe through the darkness, shifting and reshaping itself, mimicking the forms of people, then animals, then something altogether alien and angry. She felt a cold wave wash over her, flowing in through the cracks of her resolve. "Stay behind me," she ordered, her voice a brittle whisper as she took a small step toward the dark silhouette. It twitched at her movement, seeming to have a mind of its own, and then lunged forward with a swift, hungry glint. Clara shoved her children behind her, her heart pounding in her ears like a war drum. A rush of damp air brushed past her as she felt the shadow's grip at her ankles, pulling her towards the being that thrummed with a twisted hunger. She fought against the invisible chains, a feral intensity igniting within her. With a defiant scream, Clara lunged forward, reaching for a heavy lamp on the bedside table. She swung it wildly at the creature. The glass shattered against nothing, and for a fluttering moment, the laughter ceased, replaced by a deafening silence. "Did we get it?" Evan breathed in awe. "Stay close, stay close," Clara hissed, navigating through the dim light, her eyes wide, searching. Then, without warning, the shadows surged back, melting together, amalgamating in a cacophony of distorted faces and tangled limbs. They rose from the corners of the room like billowing smoke intent on drowning their hope. Clara stumbled backward, her heart squeezing painfully in her chest. The figure coalesced once more, something solidifying within the chaos. It loomed over them, an ominous silhouette with glowing eyes that sparked with malice. Clara's instincts roared to life, fight or flight. "Mom! Make it go away," Mia pleaded, choking back sobs. Clara's mind raced, desperately clawing at memories of comfort, of warmth, of safety. "Close your eyes," she shouted, not knowing if it would help but fiercely hoping. Evan and Mia obeyed, squeezing their lids shut, faces scrunched in anguish. "Go away," Clara screamed again, raising her hands as though to ward off the darkness. The room convulsed, shadows morphing violently. The pulsating form before them grew wild in its jagged movements. Clara felt as if the walls were closing in, shifting and crawling, and the air thickened with despair. Then, a whisper cut through the noise, curling around her thoughts like smoke. "You can't hide, Clara." She shook her head, trying to block it out, but the echo grew louder, filling her mind like an invasion. "You can't escape me." With each word, Clara felt her strength draining, a profound dread creeping under her skin. She glanced back at her children, their faces pale and trembling, and she understood the stakes like a low, dark hum in her bones. "Please, please," she cried, retreating further as the thing advanced, emotional tendrils reaching toward her, igniting her worst fears to life. It wanted something, something only she could give. And then she remembered something deep in her past, the haunting tether that could tie them all together. But before she could grasp it fully, the laughter roared back, enveloping her. Hope flickered like a dying flame, and Clara realized, she was losing control of the nightmare. What dark truth lingered just beyond the veil of this terror? The walls throbbed with malevolence, foreboding and alive, daring her to confront whatever lay hidden in her very own heart. The shadows writhed, slithering closer, as Clara's heart hammered in her chest like a caged animal. "Think, Clara. You have to think." But her mind felt muddled, drowning under a tidal wave of swirling panic. "Mom," Evan whimpered, eyes squeezed shut, hands gripping Mia as if they were clinging to a raft in a stormy sea. "Please, please," Clara shouted, but her voice wavered, lost among the creeping tendrils that reached for her with claw-like shadows. They curled around her ankles, tight as a noose, and she felt the cold seep into her skin, numbing her resolve. Suddenly, the whispers transformed, molding into words laced with secrets. "You know what you've done." The voice slithered through the air, curling around her throat as if to choke her. "Nothing can save you now." Terror struck her. She fought to draw a breath, gasping in the thick, fetid air. Every instinct told her to run, to turn her back on the malevolence, but the shadows were relentless. They swarmed, pooling around her feet, a tide of nightmares threatening to pull her down into an abyss. "Mom! It's getting closer." Mia's voice was a sharp blade cutting through the haze, and Clara felt a flash of fierce protection igniting within her. No darkness would take her children. "Stay close, hold on," she growled, willing herself to stand firm. Remembering her childhood, she steeled herself against the encroaching horror, recalling strength from buried memories. But what darkness loomed there, tainted and treacherous. As she concentrated on the frightening figure, it flickered past and present colliding. In its monstrous twisted form, she saw moments from her life, a broken promise, an unsaid goodbye, the shadows that skittered beneath her bed as a child, that she had so bravely dismissed. Clara realized she was facing something far more profound than mere terror. "Show yourself!" she roared suddenly, the command slicing through her fear like a knife. The thing paused, its glowing eyes narrowing, absorbing her challenge. The laughter evaporated for a moment, replaced by an unsettling silence. Clara pressed her advantage, her voice steady. "You want something from me? Then let us talk." The entity seemed to swirl, drawing into a single point, the energy pulsating as if it were contemplating her. "What are you?" Evan's small voice broke the silence, laced with both fear and courage. The creature hesitated, almost as if it was considering the children's presence. "You," it hissed slowly, "you can't escape. You carry my burden with you, Clara. It will always return." A chill spread down her spine. The echoes of betrayal, guilt, and regret surged, clawing at her mind. The truth hung heavily in the air between them, thick as fog. She felt all the unresolved pain clawing its way to the surface, and her breath caught in her throat. "Face it," the voice whispered, blending into the shadows, drowning her thoughts in endless darkness once more. "Face the truth." Clara shook her head, tears welling from the corners of her eyes. "I want to let you take us," she cried, a desperate defiance fueling her. "Are you sure?" The shadows deepened, morphing into tangible figures, people she recognized, reflected in their twisted forms. Faces of those she had lost, of those she had abandoned. "Can you fight the truth of your heart?" In that moment, the solid reality of the room trembled, a fragile illusion cracking under the weight of revelation. Clara's heart raced, spiraling with terror and guilt, every truth threatening to pull her under. Above the cacophony, she could hear a familiar sound, the high-pitched chime of the wind chimes from the front porch. That peaceful sound felt impossibly far away now, as if it belonged to another life. And just as she began to cry out again to her children, the laughter returned, echoing through the house like a death knell, freezing her in place. What did she have to confront, buried deep within the shadows of her own making? The walls rattled once more, and Clara knew. The darkness wouldn't let them go without a final sacrifice. In that looming dread, a chilling question hung in the air: what would she have to give to save her children? The shadows tightened their grip, pulsating with an unnatural rhythm, as Clara could feel her breaths quickening. Mixed emotions roiled inside her, fear intertwined with raw instinct. She saw Evan tremble, felt Mia's grip on her tighten. What more could she lose? "Clara," the creature's voice slithered back, the word laced with venom. "Remember the price of your choices." Every unforgotten misstep echoed in her mind, taunting her, reminding her of the things she had thought buried. "I can't let you take them," Clara shouted, fueling her spirit with a warrior's resolve. "You mistake your defiance for strength," the entity countered, laughter spilling like oil over a flame, igniting the intense fear boiling in her veins. "You fight against your very self. How sad." With a jolt, Clara felt a surge of energy, dark and familiar, awaken within her. It wasn't just the shadows, it was a part of her. She stood with her feet rooted, heart racing. The house creaked, surrendering as the walls pulsed, closing in as if to trap her in a tomb of despair. "Clara, look!" Evan whimpered, pointing towards the dark mass that loomed over them. The creature transformed, twisting into a grotesque version of herself, mimicking her every move. It bore her own guilt-ridden face, drowning in those familiar eyes. "I am you," it hissed, echoing her deepest fears. "You will never escape me. You are the burden." Glaring into its eyes, Clara felt the sting of tears. "No, I'm not." But doubt crept under her skin. Could she truly escape the shadows of her past? "Face your failures," the echo of her voice mocked. "Every lie you've told, every moment of weakness. They've come home to roost." Suddenly, the shadows shifted. Clara glimpsed her memories, the harsh words, the times she turned away from those who needed her most, and the faces of the people she had failed. It was horrifying. Clara shook her head violently, willing herself to forget, to push it all down again. Mia's soft whimper broke through the noise. "Mom, please. Hold on tight." Clara screamed, determination burned into her voice. She couldn't show weakness. "This is our home. This is our fight." With newfound conviction, she stepped forward, catching the reflection of herself in the creature's eyes. Strength and weakness, intertwined. "I refuse to let you define me." The shadows recoiled, hissing as if burned. Light flickered through the darkness, illuminating the room like break of dawn. Clara felt her heart thump against her chest, each beat pushing the shadows back inch by inch. But they fought back, surging again, anger palpable in the air thick as fog. "You think power is within your grasp?" The creature snarled, flinging out ghostly hands, each finger stretching like claws towards her. With every grasping tendril, Clara felt a harsh pinch in her heart. "Do you think I fear you?" she shouted, not sure if she was convincing it or herself. "I know what I must confront." Suddenly, an unexpected roar of wind tore through the room, scattering shadows like leaves in a storm. Light shot from her fingers, creating a barrier, pushing back the encroaching darkness. "Mom! It's working!" Evan exclaimed, wide-eyed. Clara felt the warmth of empowerment rush through her veins, but just as quickly, the creature shrieked, the sound a harbinger of terror, a promise of revenge. "This isn't over, Clara. The darkness always finds a way back," it screeched, fading into the shadows as rapidly as it had come. Yet, dread settled like a boulder in Clara's stomach. Would the shadows retreat only to come back stronger? As silence enveloped the room, Clara stood trembling, sweat dripping down her back. They had won this battle, but the war was far from over. "What happens now?" Mia whispered, looking up at Clara, the innocent trust unwavering in her gaze. "I don't know," Clara admitted, a chill running down her spine. "But we can't let our guard down. Not ever again." At that moment, out of the eerie silence, an unmistakable sound sliced through, soft, sinister, and all too familiar, the chime of the wind chimes outside, once comforting but now an ominous reminder that the horrors of the past lurked just a breath away. Would they face it again? What had truly awakened? The quiet was deceptive, a calm wrapped in an uneasy veil. Clara's heart drummed in her chest as she let out a shaky breath. "Stay close," she warned, casting a glance at Evan and Mia. The wind chimes sang again, their melody twisting into mocking laughter that echoed inside her mind, each note sent shivers spiraling down her spine. They were symbols of comfort once, but they had now become part of the horror tale unfolding within these walls. Clara's gaze darted to the shadows in the corners, her breath stuck in her throat. "What's next?" she murmured. Outside, the night was thick and suffocating. The wind howled like a lost spirit, raking its icy fingers through the trees. Clara looked around the dimly lit room, her eyes settling on the corner where shadows pooled. Shadows of her past. But they were not the only things lurking in the darkness. "Mia, Evan, keep your eyes open," she urged, her words barely a whisper. Every fiber in her body screamed for them to run, to escape the suffocating dread within these walls. But where would they go? Who could they trust now? As she stepped forward, the floor creaked deeply, a protest, like a warning. No more running, she thought. The entity may have retreated, but the air was thick with its promise to return. "Mom, what if it comes back?" Mia's voice cracked, the fear evident in her innocent yet terrified eyes. "It will," Clara replied, a grim determination settling into her bones. "But this time, we'll be ready." She felt an unfamiliar strength grow, pulsing like heat beneath her skin. It was not just her fighting spirit, it was something darker, a reminder of the shadows inside her that she must confront head-on. Then, as if on cue, the chime rang out again, louder, more frantic. Clara jumped. The sound shattered her resolve, echoing her own torment back at her. The familiar yet twisted melody morphed into distorted whispers, brushing past her ears like the caress of a cold hand. "Face your failures, you cannot escape," the voices sang, mocking, overlapping, suffocating. Clara clenched her fists, feeling the nails bite into her palms, grounding herself against the tide of panic that threatened to pull her under. Suddenly, the candle flames flickered violently, dark shadows weaving snakes around them, constricting. "What if it's feeding on our fear?" she thought frantically. She had heard stories about spirits lingering, feeding off that precise terror. Panic wouldn't save them. "I need to confront it," Clara whispered, more to herself than anyone else. The thought made her skin crawl, but without daring to look back, she moved toward the door, sending a final glance back at her children. "Whatever happens, we are together." Opening the creaking door, a heavy wave of cold air rushed at her like a freight train. Clara hesitated for a heartbeat, her pulse pounding loudly in her ears. Then, she stepped out into the darkness, each step echoing on the wooden floorboards, a clear declaration of defiance. Outside, the garden lay before her like a graveyard, shadows twisting into grotesque shapes under the pale moonlight. Eve had always loved this garden, a vibrant riot of colors, now reduced to a faded memory. The darkness seemed to breathe, pulsating with each beat of her heart. Clara felt the pull of dread, the past clawing at the edges of her mind. Was she truly strong enough to face what she had buried? The bushes rustled, and for an instant, she thought she caught a familiar silhouette, her twisted reflection perhaps. As she took another shaky step, pain laced through her chest, an aching reminder of everything she hadn't faced. The familiar pressure pressed down on her, the shadows danced, threatening to close in. Then a sudden surge of wind swept through, twisting and dragging Clara deeper into the garden. The chime rang out, warped and echoing in the night. And then silence. "Clara?" A tentative voice pulled her back. "Evan." His concern connected with her. "Stay close." She snapped, the urgency tight in her voice. But something in the garden momentarily caught her attention, an old, rusted gate ajar. Invitation. Deep inside, Clara felt ice settle in her gut. What if there's something worse beyond? She whispered, but their search for freedom would have to begin somewhere. Beyond that gate lay the answers she did not want, but needed. The chime rang once more. An icy chill spread through the air. It beckoned her. What lurked behind that gate? Would it reveal a way out, or bind her deeper into the thorns of her own darkness? The rusted gate creaked ominously, its hinges screaming against the silence of the night. Clara's heart raced, each beat thunderous in her ears. She could feel it, something alive, something watching, waiting. It drew her closer, both magnetic and repulsive. "Mia, Evan," she faltered, her voice barely a whisper as dread clutched at her throat. "Wait here." "No." Evan protested, eyes wide with fear. "We should all go back inside." A chill snaked along Clara's spine. The shadows thickened, a living entity curling around her. Her instincts screamed for her to turn back, to gather her children and escape. But as she stood before the gate, that same voice from before echoed in her mind, dark, twisted, and familiar. "Face your failures, stay close or don't at all." She shouted, the reach of outrage barely masking her terror. Pushing the gate open, the rusted metal protested, scraping against the ground like nails on a chalkboard. Beyond lay a narrow path, overgrown and treacherous, framed by gnarled branches and twisted vines. The air hung thicker, electric, as if each breath was charged with impending doom. "I hate this place," Mia whispered. A small tremor edged her voice. But Clara couldn't let fear drive them back. With a shaky yet determined step, she led the way, the darkness swallowing them whole as the gate swung shut with a final, echoing thud. The path wound through a sea of shadows, the ground uneven and soaked with the midnight dew that felt far too cold. Clara's flashlight flickered a cruel trick that sent her heart leaping into her throat. "Just stay close," she repeated, her voice wavering as uncertainty gnawed at her resolve. "Look." Evan pointed ahead. A dilapidated structure emerged from the gloom, a decaying shed, its roof sagging like the weight of years past. Shadows danced around it, including those that could not belong to them. Clara hesitated, glancing around as though the darkness might release its vice grip at any moment. "What's in there?" "I'm not sure." "Should we find out?" Evan's voice trembled slightly, but there was an edge of curiosity, a flicker of bravery amidst the fear. A gust of wind sent a shudder down her spine, as if the shed itself breathed in the night. "Of course we should," she lied, the urgency of survival overtaking her instinct to protect. They had come too far to turn back, too far to let the past consume them. Before she could second-guess herself, Clara pushed the door. It creaked ominously, revealing a dark hollow inside. The flashlight beam pierced through, and Clara's breath hitched. Old tools hung cluttered along the walls, coated in dust. A heavy silence trembled, disturbed only by the soft scratching against the floorboards. Something shifted in the shadows, an unmistakable form breaking free. Mia's plea was muffled. "What is that?" Before Clara could react, the flashlight flickered again, illuminating a figure. It was almost human, hunched over and trembling, but its eyes glowed with an unnatural light. Then came the chime, sharp and piercing, cutting through the silence, surrounding them like a shroud. Clara's heart lodged in her throat. "We have to go," she yelled. But it was too late. Tentacles of darkness shot from the shed, entwining around her limbs, pulling her back as if demanding her attention. Fear wrapped around her heart like a vice. "What do you want?" she cried out, desperation fueling her voice. The eyes flickered, the glow intensifying. The whispers rose again, this time louder, echoing ancient truths that made her blood run cold. Face the darkness, and in one crushing moment, realization struck like ice through her veins. This was not just about her fears, it was about what she had left behind. A windstorm erupted, and Clara felt herself being torn in opposite directions, the past trying to swallow her whole. "Mom!" Mia screamed, panic tearing through each syllable, but what awaited them in the shed? Clara's breath hitched with the weight of her imminent decision. Would she confront the darkness, the ominous entity that lay within? Or would she allow the shadows of her history to pull them into the abyss? In that moment, what lay ahead was no longer a question of escape, but survival. Would she finally unearth the horrors hiding in her memory, or would they all be consumed by the terror? The whispers swelled into a horrifying crescendo, drawing nearer. The truth loomed just out of reach, tangled in the darkness that awaited. What if she trembled, voice cracking? What if this is only the beginning? The darkness closed in, thick and suffocating. Clara felt the pull of the shadows tightening around her like a noose, her breath coming in shallow gasps as panic clawed at her throat. She could hear Mia's frantic sobs, Evan's whimpers blending into the whispers of the shed, a symphony of despair. "Mom!" Evan's voice was a desperate wail. "You have to fight it. Fight it." "But how?" Clara couldn't remember who she was in the face of this malignant force. Each second felt like an eternity, each pulse of her heart a reminder of the past she had buried deep. The glimmering eyes from the figure in the shadows burned into her. "Face your failures," it whispered again, each word cutting deeper into her soul. "No!" Clara cried, feeling the weight of everything she tried to forget crash around her. Anger rose, furious and confused, battling with the fear that threatened to consume her. "Let us go." Suddenly, the cold tendrils withdrew just enough for her to breathe, but the shadows didn't release their grasp. The figure loomed larger, a grotesque parody of a human. Its mouth twisted into a smile that stretched too wide, revealing teeth like jagged shards of glass. "Face yourself," it hissed. Its voice reverberated inside her head, echoing memories she had spent years trying to silence. Dark memories surfaced, moments of failure, heartbreak, regrets festering like open wounds. Mia stepped forward, trembling. "Mom, we have to stick together." But the creature turned its attention to her, eyes blazing with an unearthly light. "Your mother cannot save you," it crooned, each syllable a taunt. Clara's heart dropped at the sight of the budding terror in Mia's eyes. "No!" she shouted, her instincts surging. Yet the creature's voice twisted into something more sinister. "She failed to protect you." Clara's gut twisted. No. She had tried so hard. The past shouldn't hold her hostage now. The whirlpool of her thoughts spiraled faster, drowning her will. Clara had to fight back. For her children. For herself. She focused on Mia and Evan, their faces pale and terrified. "Close your eyes," she shouted, a fierce determination igniting inside her. "Think of happy places. Remember what light feels like." Mia squeezed Evan's hand, both kids shutting their eyes tightly. An extra flicker of the flashlight caught the figure in a harsh light. Clara seized the moment. "You don't own me," she screamed, pushing through layers of dread and shame. With a surge of defiance, she yanked at the shadows binding her and imagined light flooding in from all sides. She felt warmth distributing through her body, illuminating the darkest corners of her heart. The whispers became chaotic, turning into shrieks as the light around Clara intensified. "No! You will not take her!" The creature howled, the smug darkness within its eyes flickering uncertainly. As the blinding light expanded, Clara felt hope and courage surge within her chest, intertwining with rage. She stepped forward, grounded by the fear of losing her children. "You're nothing. Just shadows of my past." In that instant, everything around them began to unravel. The shed trembled, cracked walls splintering as the air thickened with a pungent, acrid smell. The figure quivered, its form flickering like a dying flame. "Mom, what is happening?" Evan's voice trembled, confusion and fear etched into his features. "Hold on," Clara shouted, quickly realizing the shadows deserved no power over them, that breaking free was their only chance. With one final effort, Clara surged toward the creature, thrusting her hands forward. "I refuse to be afraid of you. We are moving forward." A blinding flash erupted as light surged toward the figure, and with a horrifying shriek, the creature exploded into a cloud of darkness, scattering like smoke in the wind. The shed shook violently, and before she could process what was happening, the floor beneath them began to crack and tremble. "Run!" Clara urged. But would they escape the chaos? With no time to waste, she grabbed both children and bolted out the door just before the structure crumbled behind them. A thunderous roar consuming the night. Gasping, they stumbled into the open air, the night sky strangely silent around them. Clara could hardly believe they had made it. But as relief washed over them, the whispers began again, rising from deep in the ground. "What have you done?" The echoes taunted, the shadows coiling eerie and potent around them like a smothering blanket. Clara's heart raced as she glanced back at the ruins, knowing this was just a taste of the darkness that lingered. "We may have survived tonight," she murmured, but what comes next? And lurking somewhere in the shadows, the true terror awaited. Would it ever truly end? Their breaths came in frantic bursts as they staggered away from the remains of the shed. Clara's heart pounded, a wild rhythm that pounded against the backdrop of night. She hadn't just faced a darkness born from the shadows of her past but had unleashed a battle cry that reverberated through the very fabric of their existence. For the first time, the weight of the shadows felt lighter just a bit. "Mom, what was that thing?" Mia asked, her small voice fighting against the tremors still shaking her limbs. "I don't know, sweetheart," Clara replied, the words slipping into the air like prayers. "But we beat it. For now." She scanned their surroundings. The garden was not just dark, it felt profane, twisted under the weight of memories tugging at the corners of her mind. The wind howled through the trees, and the wind chimes sang again, their haunting melody mingling with an unsettling sense of victory. Evan's voice was shaky, eyes wide as he clung to his sister, searching for reassurance. "Do you think it's gone?" She knelt to meet their gaze, willing strength into her voice. "I think we have to be ready. Whatever it is, it'll try again." The oppressive silence stretched into the night, broken only by Evan's soft sobs and the whisper of the wind. "Let us go home," Clara said, pulling them closer. She turned away from the wreckage, inadvertently bubbling with the urge to sob. No matter the victory, her heart ached for what they had encountered. As they moved back toward the house, a flicker of warmth welled inside her, a resolve to face whatever came next. Fear had shaped their past, but it would not define their future. "I found something in the shed," she admitted, voice low. "Something that can't trap us anymore." She understood now, the shadows had fed on grief, guilt, and secrets, but she wouldn't allow them to win. With every step, confidence brewed deep within Clara, ignited by the raw love she held for her children. They climbed the porch steps together, the wood creaking beneath them as if in blissful recognition of their arrival. Once inside, she shut the door tightly, sealing off the past, if only for a moment. "Mom, are we safe now?" Mia asked hesitantly. "Safer than before," Clara promised, though uncertainty lingered like a fragile thread. She needed to believe that what they had just escaped was merely a chapter, not the end of their story. "But we have to stick together." Evan looked at her, his eyes reflecting a faith only children seem to possess. "Can we tell stories? Happy ones?" "Absolutely," Clara said, sitting on the couch, pulling them in close. "Tonight, we tell all the stories that make us smile. Let us remember the good." They settled in, curling against her like roots seeking warmth in the earth. And as she began, the familiarity of soft tales of heroic journeys and vibrant worlds began to heal the fractures dusk had left upon their hearts. The house felt different now, not just a shell of despair, but a place where memories could blossom, where love could fill the cracks threatening to consume them. And as she spoke, the wind outside quieted, the night drew in close, heavy with promise as laughter filled the corners of their sanctuary. But in the back of Clara's mind, an echo lingered soft, almost forgotten, "This isn't over." As they finished their stories, she couldn't shake the certainty that the shadows would grow restless again, but for tonight, duty as a mother propelled her, the darkness could wait. "Tomorrow we'll face whatever comes," she said softly, not just to her children but to herself. Together. She leaned back, makeup of the moments clinging to the air like a spell. They were safe for now. And that was enough to shield them against the past. Outside the house, a figure cloaked in shadow whispered through the wind an unfinished tale waiting to be told. "Now, this is where the real journey begins." If you're ready for more adventures, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help it thrive. Flood the comment section with your wild reactions and theories about what's to come. We want to hear your thoughts. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans know how important it is to support the channel through these actions.